New Hampshire's lake region generally comprises the center of the state. The area is best known for Lakes Winnipesaukee and Squam. With simple directness, the Indian name Squam meant water, and in the region there are more than 1,000 lakes of varying sizes. On some of these lakes, you'll find summer life and the excitement of resort culture. On others, there are those special places where you can find solitude by some quiet water. Early travelers were entranced by views of scenic Lake Chocorua. Today, its magic remains untouched. Some of the lakes, like Ossipee and Newfound, have undergone a lot of development, while others, like Squam, have been more protected by their local owners. For most people, the magic of these lakes is found by sailing their clear blue waters. Boating on New Hampshire's lakes has a long and honorable history, whether traveling by steamboat or cruising in a classic runabout. And although today most of the old steamships lie at the bottom of the lake, no trip to the lakes region is complete without a sail aboard the MS Mount Washington. Many of these sailings are guided by Fleet Captain Bob Cole.
Lake Winnipesaukee has always been a place for people to come to. From the beginning of the development of community living and culture in New England, Lake Winnipesaukee has stood out as one of the places that people can come and visit, have a clean lake, clean air, and beautiful surroundings to spend, whether it be a day or a week or a month. People ride on the Mount Washington to see the lake, basically, to see the islands, the mountain ranges, and to just enjoy the opportunity to cruise a clean, clear lake and have fun. Well, boating actually began on Winnipesaukee back when the Indians first inhabited the area. Later came the old horse-drawn boats, which the horse would ride on a treadmill and push the boat along. Then from the canoe to the horseboat to the steamboat era in the 1800s, the first steamboat on the lake was the old Belknap. Steamboating on Winnipesaukee began in the 1800s, and it was an important part of the lifeline to the different areas of the lake. The steamboats carried passengers, freight, mail to the various ports of call around the lake. The Lady of the Lake comes to mind as an important steamboat of the era, and many others, too numerous to mention actually. The most beautiful and probably the most well-known was the old steamer Mount Washington, which was built by the Boston and Maine Railroad in 1872 on the shores of Alton Bay. Weirs Beach was the central location on the lake for the main artery, I guess, from southern New England via rail. And the old Weirs Hotel, which was located on the side of the hillside at Weirs Beach, was a very popular summer spot to come to. When I was growing up, they had a lot of penny arcades and ice cream and soda shops and things like that. Nothing much has really changed at Weirs Beach over the years, because the old hotel is gone. That was destroyed by fire in 1924. But basically, Weirs Beach is most noted for its fact of being a Hampton Beach inland on a lake, as opposed to a Hampton Beach on the ocean. Wolfboro, on the other hand, has a little bit different history to it, where the colonial governor established a summer home there. And he built a road from Portsmouth, New Hampshire to Wolfboro, and the establishment of his summer home in Wolfboro gives that town the right to say that they are the oldest summer resort in America. The motor ship Mount Washington is the largest vessel in the fleet of Winnipesaukee boats. It is also the largest vessel on Lake Winnipesaukee. It was brought here and was formerly the old Chateauguay, which was a vessel on Lake Champlain and a sister ship to the old Ticonderoga. There has been a Mount Washington on Lake Winnipesaukee since 1872. It has not only become popular with people who ride on it during the season, it's also important to the community that lives around the lake, both on the mainland and the islands. People look for the mount every day. A lot of people set their watch by the time schedule. They know what time to tell the kids to come back from the beach. But when the mount goes by, you kids come home for lunch or dinner or whatever. The Mount Washington has also become one of the symbols of the state for the tourism industry, and we hope to be here for another 100 years.
North of Winnipesaukee is Squam Lake. It's a quieter place that offers a variety of refined pleasures. 100 years ago, this lake provided a rustic getaway for East Coast society. In Holderness, one of their turn-of-the-century mansions has been turned into a modern country inn, the Manor on Golden Pond. Innkeepers Bambi and David Arnold provide modern visitors with a taste of the Gilded Age on Squam Lake.
Originally, Isaac Van Horn from Florida ventured to New England and was seeking a place to build his home and estate. He wanted a place overlooking a lake in the mountains in a lovely setting, and he selected Shepherd Hill in Holderness and built what is now the Manor on Golden Pond. This was in 1903. He brought craftsmen from all over the world to make a wonderful home to vacation in for his family. It became a private home to other families after that. One of the interesting families that owned it was the editor of Life magazine, and it was turned into a resort about the 50s. And then maybe 12 to 13 years ago, when the movie On Golden Pond was made, On Golden Pond became part of the name. Well, Squam is very natural, and it's beautiful, and one of the nice things is it hasn't been promoted. We've tried to preserve the original ambiance of what the Van Horns came to enjoy for people who would like to step back in time and enjoy the life that of yesteryear.
It seemed like the whole world became aware of the beauty of New Hampshire's lakes with the hit movie On Golden Pond. The real Golden Pond is here at Squam Lake, and its beauty makes a perfect setting for discovering the wonders of the natural world. The movie also introduced many people to the magic of the northern loon. In fact, in recent years, a kind of loon mania has swept the region. But the loon is a threatened species. Until recently, they were disappearing from these northern lakes because of the pressures of development. Now, however, the loons are making a comeback because of the dedicated efforts of the New Hampshire Audubon Society's Loon Preservation Committee. The committee makes its home here in Meredith on Lake Winnipesaukee. Jeff Fair directs the project.
I've been attracted to loons probably since the first time I heard them, but perhaps even before that from reading of some of the early northern travelers and their experiences with loons. I happen to love the North, and it's awful hard to love the North without loving the loons. About 15 years ago, we started the Loon Preservation Committee because the loons were disappearing from lakes and ponds across New Hampshire. The major reasons for that were unknown at the time. We assumed it was a lot of habitat loss due to development, and the Audubon Society formed this project, a statewide project, to first of all verify the fact that the loons were disappearing, which was verified, and set up a management project so that we could attempt to encourage the loons to return in numbers. And as of today, we're beginning to see that. We've seen the nesting population of common loons in New Hampshire increase. We've seen the number of successful nesting pairs nearly double, and we are seeing them actually recolonizing some of the lakes and ponds from which they've disappeared across the last century. In many of our nesting sites around New Hampshire, we have a lot of human traffic passing right by, and so we began to float signs under the auspices of New Hampshire Fish and Game, which declared the area a temporary sanctuary from human traffic. And in many cases, we recruited human volunteers to go out in their boats and nest sit, or patrol as we call it, in order to reinforce the signs and also provide information for people that came by who were curious about the loons once they read that loons were nesting in the area.
Jane Irwin is typical of the dedicated volunteers working to save the loons.
The very first thing that really draws you to the loons is all of a sudden you're out there and you're looking at these birds, and they're completely different from any other animal that you ever see. It just moves you inside. Every noise they make, every motion that they make, the position of their head, the position of their body, how much the loon's body is out of the water or how low it is in the water, all means something. It's just like they're talking to you. It's a very critical time when the loon chick is small to keep people away and let the parents feed the baby chick. Loons cannot feed themselves. They have to be taught to dive. They have to be taught to catch their own food. A loon has to be taught by its parents until they're 8 weeks old or so. So it's important that we watch over them and protect them. Where they once was wilderness, and it didn't matter if they were by themselves and no one disturbed them. But now it's entirely different. A loon will come back to a place where they've nested, and all of a sudden there's a house on that place where they nested. So they have to move to some other spot. And close to where their nest might be, there are lots of people. And we have to educate those people so they won't disrupt them in any way.
The loon is a symbol of the North and the wild, and it's also the voice of the wild to many people in New Hampshire. And many of us like to know that a bit of that wild is still here, even though we have houses on most of our lakes now. It's a very inspiring thing to be able to hear those loons calling at night.